Hello and welcome to this training. So glad you are here. If you're an intermediate advanced rock or blues guitar player who needs a different way to become an in-demand gig-ready musician without practicing for hours and hours every day, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Functional Guitar Foundations Roadmap. This is going to be the 3 practical steps to becoming a well-rounded gig-ready guitarist this year. So how this training came about was basically I took what I've learned over the last 40 years of playing guitar and I wrote a letter that I would have sent back to my past self. This is what I would have told my past self, just to kind of make the path a little smoother and to maybe make the learning a little deeper. Let's kind of address who this is not for. So if you are a brand new guitar player, you are just learning, I don't want to waste your time. Feel free to click back and find something else to watch. Or if you are happy with your current learning methods, if you're moving along just fine, you're rocking out, definitely don't want to change anything. I want you to have the best experience possible. If you found it, good on you. No love lost at all. Definitely go back and do that. Who this is for. So if you're a frustrated and discouraged intermediate and advancing player who has been at it for years and you still feel like a complete beginner, this might be the place for you. Something I've learned over the years is the problem and the deeper issues is that most struggling players fall into three categories. They're embarrassed because they've been at it for years and still can't play any songs. They're frustrated because they practice a lot and never seem to get any better. And they know that there has to be a better way. They feel it in their bones, but they can't seem to find it no matter how many YouTube videos they watch. I've definitely been there for sure. In this training, we will focus on the 3 biggest mistakes all guitar players make and how those mistakes create massive barriers to their becoming accomplished musicians and guitar players. And we're going to also look at the 3 things you can start doing today to bust through those barriers. So without further ado, let's kind of share a story here. This is one of my clients, Michael K. Michael is a music producer that has been at it for a long time, like decades. He's really been going. And when he came to me, he wanted to become a proficient guitar player so he could rough in guitar parts and guides for songs he sent to other musicians to play on. He is now recording entire guitar-based songs with multiple rhythm tracks and solos. To date, we've collaborated on dozens of songs together, and I'm playing less and less guitar on his tracks because he's found a solid and functional bass on the guitar to create from. Definitely check him out if you get a chance. All kinds of music, all kinds of fun stuff. So a little bit about my story, how I got here. Back in 1983, I started playing guitar. You can kind of see the young me up there. I think my parents had purchased a Mel Bay book, which was a bunch of big cowboy chords and stuff like that. I was excited for a little while. I was like, yeah, this is cool. But then I realized cowboy chords and playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star was not my thing. You can see I'm holding an acoustic guitar, not my thing. So a year later, the electric guitar kind of entered into the scene. Goodbye, Mel Bay. Hello, rock and blues. But I totally skipped the basics that I probably would have learned in the Mel Bay book, but it was just too boring. So starting in 1996, I kind of slogged through, but I figured out, hey, there are other people that are learning music too, and I found my people, but I still struggled so much. Had imposter syndrome. I had extreme stage fright. And I started back to square one, trying to rebuild who I was as a player. By 1992, I'd kind of put guitar on the back burner, and I went ahead and did what I was supposed to do, went to school, became a computer engineer, kind of put in some years there, and in 2000, the transition and the transformation begins for me. I was living a lie in a career that was not my dream. I did not dig it. And I started working to find more playing opportunities to blow off steam. In 2009, I was still working as an engineer. I was helping out with local churches, different charities, things like that. So I was kind of a semi-pro guitar player. But then I got paired, very fortunately, with a bunch of pros that were amazing, and I basically got dropped into the deep end there. I had to go back to the very, very basics that I'd skipped back in '83 and really start thinking about timing and groove, where things were on the fretboard, how to play the big boy chords, all the things that we kind of skipped through because we want to play riffs and AC/DC songs and whatnot. So that was a learning period for me. Fast forward to 2023, and welcome to the really deep end. I kind of stepped away from engineering, stepped fully into professional musicianship, coaching and teaching. And this is when the gates open. And once again, I was clobbered in a good way, but I was still unprepared. I had spent a lot of time working on the foundational things, and I kind of thought, oh, big fish in a little pond. I've got this figured out. Nope, there was a whole nother level, working with touring musicians and people that have been in the studio for years. And that's another growth curve that we'll probably touch on as we go through some of these elements. Today, having gone through how to do it wrong in every possible way, I am living the dream. I'm living as a healthy and balanced musician who I get to help others learn how to create music, and I get to have fun creating music with a ton of amazing people. 2004 and beyond, I'm just excited about what the future holds. Having a foundational basis in what I do and having maintained that for the better part of the last 10 or 11 years has really helped me. So let's go ahead and kind of dive in here. First off, I want to talk about the 3 barriers to functional mastery on the guitar. The first one, kind of hard to see with my head in the way there, is lack of clarity. Next one's going to be information overload. And the last one's going to be no order or chaos. There we go. This first barrier here, not having a clear picture of what you want to accomplish as a musician, plus not understanding what a successful musician does or knows, is a massive barrier for almost all guitar players. If you think about guitar, whoever your favorite guitar heroes are, if it's Van Halen or it's Matthias Sasato or Bonamassa or whoever, they are actually the exception. I've worked with tons of guitar players that were amazing, but they could handle the basics. They were amazing rhythm players. Even Van Halen says that 90% of what you play on guitar is going to be rhythm, so be really good at that. And one thing that I've learned throughout the years is that many amazing players stay out of the spotlight for opportunities to have great musical conversations and experiences. I listed just a few examples here. Josh Smith, who is an amazing guitar player, blues, country, rock, the whole deal, and a producer, I think in LA now, is backing up Bonamassa because he gets to go on tour, gets to produce these albums, but has amazing musical conversations with Joe. Bonamassa backing up Matteo Mancuso. And if you're not hip to Matteo Mancuso and you kind of like the rock, I'm going to say the rock jazz fusion vibe, check him out because there's some great videos where Bonamassa is just holding down the rhythm while Matteo Mancuso is just tearing it up. So again, stepping back to have that great musical conversation. Clapton is one of the best examples. He's backed up countless greats at the Crossroads festivals throughout the years. You can watch most of those on YouTube. Man, I mean, he has just stood back and played rhythm so that he could, just be with these amazing players. And this is a great example, kind of a recent one, depending on when you're watching this, Vince Gill touring with the Eagles. So Vince Gill, a massive vocalist, a massive instrumentalist, and he kind of put his ego and everything in check so that he could go out and have this, once in a lifetime experience with the Eagles. I don't know, that's pretty special if you ask me, but the example is these players were not stepping into the limelight. They were just wanting to be part of that musical conversation. Barrier number 2, the information overload thing. Guitar is amazing, but the information available to learn about guitar subjects is massive and can have a paralyzing effect on players trying to navigate the information jungle. Not knowing what is needed really to progress at a faster rate leads to most foundational skills are not being covered online. Most teachers assume newer players will have all the basic masters before moving on to more advanced subjects. So if you've ever watched a YouTube video and, some of it was cool and the person was cool, but that information, they said stuff that just went over your head. That's a great example of that. The dreaded cycle of, oh, this is too hard. Next. That holds player hostage to frustration and overwhelm for extended periods of time, and lots of practice happens with little or no return. So if you ever got caught in that YouTube rabbit trail where, I'm going to watch this, no, I'm going to watch this, you spend hours looking through that and you may never actually touch the guitar. So that's that dreaded cycle there. And a knowledge-based learning process that lures players into thinking they are more advanced than they actually are. So this is a very important point. Knowing about something is not the same as being able to apply something appropriately and skillfully. So a lot of people can talk about, I've looked at the cage system, but they know about it and kind of how it may work, but they can't actually apply it in a musical conversation. So that's definitely a big barrier there. Barrier number 3, not learning and doing things in an efficient and effective way, also known as chaos. So I tried to find a cool picture with, the zigs and zags that most players go through. So I want to ask, how many of you watching this have just picked up a guitar and started shredding or noodling around? I'm guilty of that for sure. Who started learning solos or licks before the basics? Like strumming in time and picking and stuff like that, and pretty much skipped all of the timing, the chords, truly knowing where things are on the fretboard and understanding how it works. I'm guilty. And how much progress is actually left on the table because a proper sequence of events is not followed. So here's just some things and some consequences of skipping over the basics there. So no timing development, that equals no groove or ability to play with others. So just like me, I developed stage fright because I knew I didn't have these foundations, and it always felt weird, like I wouldn't be able to have that musical conversation, and I had the hardest time playing with others for years. No warm-ups equals zero consistency with playing. So imagine how that impacts your psyche when, you can kind of hit that Crazy Train intro maybe 2 times out of 10. Well, nobody's going to want to go out and play with other people if your consistency is only 20%. You're only hitting it that much. So not warming up is a big contributor to that. No consistency while playing equals performance anxiety and the inability to create musical conversations. So if you've ever felt like you were forced to copy the solos of others and then try to maybe shoehorn them in at a blues jam or whatever, you've kind of felt that copy versus create thing. No creating and all copying equals playing the same boring things over and over and losing motivation and confidence. So again, kind of leaving a lot of the things out of sequence really hurts a player from the base level up, and it really hurts their chances of being able to share their music with the world or their loved ones or their dog on the back porch, whatever it happens to be. All right, now we're going to jump into the 3 areas of focus for gig readiness. And I call this the software, strategy, and sequence. These are going to kind of be the 3 biggies here. First one, software is like the mindset thing. So this first area of focus, Having a clear picture of who you want to be as a musician, that makes all the difference in how quickly you reach your goals with the following things in mind. Functional musicians may not know everything about music, but they've mastered the conversational aspects of music on a deeper level than most players ever do. Definitely more than most hobbyists ever do. Things like time, feel, and groove. Again, how can you insert yourself into a situation, be a part of that conversation? Harmony. So applied to the guitar, you think like triads and chords and stuff like that, as well as to all music. So once you understand how music works, you can apply it to your instrument. It becomes easier to pick up a bass or sit at a piano and kind of apply that harmony. Melody, I put that as improvisation and soloing, but it could also be maybe figuring out melodies by ear and doing that faster because you kind of understand how that works. And then the big one, I'm going to keep hammering this home, interacting with other musicians. So most guitar players miss this crucial point. I know I sure did, and it held me back for many years. If you think back to my timeline, stage fright, performance anxiety, that imposter syndrome of, oh, they're going to find out that I suck. This was a big reason I didn't have the chops. Personally, musically, all of that to be interacting with other musicians. So want to kind of jump into this mindset thing. I never heard about why mindsets were so important until I finally reached my breaking point and found a mentor quite a while ago who was doing what I wanted to be doing at the level I wanted to be doing at. So not a super professional, but had been in the studio and did a couple of tours or whatever. That's kind of what I was looking for. And initially I balked at the questions he asked me. Things like, oh, why do you want to play guitar? Well, duh, because it's cool. What is it about playing guitar that you think you want to achieve? I want to be Randy Rhoads or Eddie Van Halen or Stevie Ray Vaughan. Hello. How will playing the guitar like Stevie Ray Vaughan or whatever it happened to be make you feel? And where do you see yourself in 2, 5, 10, 20 years regarding your playing? Granted, I had specific goals for my playing, but all these questions seemed a little much. And I distinctly remember asking myself, dude, can't I just play guitar? And then reality hit. At first, I chose to forget to do the exercises so I could kind of get to the good stuff in the training. And then I began seeing other clients of my mentor skyrocket in their heights, skyrocket to new heights in their music careers like I had never, ever dreamed of. And I never imagined myself doing what they were doing. And that's the breakthrough. I never bothered to actually paint a visual picture of where I wanted to go with my playing. But they had. Ugh, duh. And that's when my Mr. Miyagi showed up and things really took off. I remember seeing a long time ago, but it kind of came up in the season of my life. Bruce Lee led the charge for me when I finally came around and began gathering proof about how important the mental game of music or life in general really is. And that's when I dug up this Bruce Lee letter that he wrote to himself. I think I saw it when I was much younger, maybe in one of his books. And this is the basic gist of it. This is the whole thing. But my definite chief aim, I, Bruce Lee, will be the highest paid Oriental superstar in the United States. In return, I will give the most incredible performances and give my best acting. From 1970 on, I will achieve worldwide fame, and from then on until the end of 1980, I will have in my possession $10 million. I will live as I please, and I will also have inner harmony and peace. So he painted a massive picture, and from what I remember, aside from just the tragedies in his life, he did a lot of these things. So that's where it kind of started to glue together for me and started to kind of make sense. So what we're going to do is I actually want you to begin developing your picture. So in this exercise, we'll learn how small updates in perspective can produce massive changes and results. This could be the most important exercise of this entire training, so please don't skip it. I'm going to go through the steps, and then I'm going to do a little bit of sharing, and then we'll come back to this slide. So what I want you to do when we get to this, you're going to pause the video. You're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. I'm going to want you to get a clean sheet of paper and a pen or open a blank document on your computer. You're going to start the timer, and for the entire 10 minutes, I want you to write exactly what your dream life as a musician would look like. Every detail, no matter how big or small, the types of music you play, the shows you play, the band you're in, the instruments you play, the songs you record, and the friendships you make. I want you to pack in everything with this, because this is the catalyst for everything that comes after. I want you to dream as big as possible, make it Bruce Lee big, because that's only going to help make the process more effective. Before pausing the video and completing the action item, here is a copy of my results from a past round of this exercise. This was my 10-minute exercise results. I am a self-employed musician, producer, arranger, and songwriter. And I would also add to that now, I'm an educator. I have written and released 50 songs in the blues, rock, metal, and country genres. I have 5 bands, and I regularly gig out. I have 5 bands I regularly gig out with in my local area, and I also have 5 music producers that I regularly write and record with. My day typically starts with 30 minutes of guitar practice while I'm drinking coffee. Next, I open up tracks from one of my producer friends and begin ear training the chord progressions. Once the changes are written down, I grab my Chet Atkins Gretsch and begin laying down chord passes. This session takes me to lunch, where I hang out with my wife and play with my dogs. After lunch, I grab my Sur Strat and I begin dialing in a lead tone that is smooth yet not too overdriven. And as I record the lead, I watch my hands and wonder, because it feels like I'm watching someone else play, as glorious leads with in-tune bends and long flowing lines get recorded. Ha! I hit that zone again. As always, I'm so grateful I get to do what I do. And as I save the DAW session and upload it to Dropbox, I'm mentally rehearsing the Eagles songs I get to play with the tribute band later this evening. Dinner with my wife, more playing with the dogs, then off to the gig, where I play with great time, tone, and touch as the killer band I'm with crushes that gig. Can't wait to do it all again soon. Get home and relax and smile as my head hits the pillow, because tomorrow I get to do it all over again. So I'm inserting the details, the feeling, the gratitude, all the things that kind of help pull me towards my goals. Hopefully that gives you a good example. All right, so now we're going to actually do the exercise. Again, follow these steps. Pause this video, set a timer for 10 minutes, get a clean sheet of paper, open a doc, start that timer, and for the entire 10 minutes, I want you to be writing and putting those details in there. If it ends up being a page, that's awesome. If it's 2 pages, that's even better. Just make a clear vision of what you're working towards. That vision can change. Maybe months down the road, you decide you want a Duesenberg instead of a Gretsch. It doesn't matter. You just want to put those fine details in there, because that's really going to help moving forward. All right, go ahead and pause the video. Come back when you're ready for the next section. Right now, I kind of want to continue on. I want to tell the story of past client Bill Donnell. He went through a very similar situation and a very similar transformation after playing guitar for decades and never really making much progress. He used a lot of these techniques, trainings, mindsets, so on and so forth. And when he reported back, he said, "I'm proud to say that I have now graduated to playing in a band, and my confidence and abilities are a direct reflection of all that I have learned." So Bill is out there doing it, and this work has really helped that. Okay, now we want to move on to area focus number 3. This is going to be the sequence. So assuming the mindset is solid and your strategy is in place, the last component in this roadmap is placing things in the right sequence for optimum results. So, cake, anyone? Finding the recipe for success is Just like making a cake, you can have all the right components, the eggs, the flour, the sugar, the everything. But if you put them together in the wrong order, or if you don't follow the right order of events, you're going to end up with a mess at the end. So, taking note of your proficiency in the 6 foundational elements allows you to unlock your personal learning code and leverage existing strengths to progress much faster. So, for instance, if your timing and groove is not developed, your ability to learn songs or simply just strum along with a song will be greatly diminished. This even impacts your your ability to play with others. However, if practice time is dedicated to developing timing and groove, then learning songs will be so much faster and easier because the foundation is there. It's being built. All right, building your recipe for gig readiness. In this section of the training, we'll go through a simple process to put your success recipe in order. We'll do this by examining the vehicle that provides results and progress, and that's practice. So not all practice is productive. If you're like my younger self, you more than likely feel all that's needed to succeed and become a successful gig-ready musician is more practice, right? I totally bought into that. Seems to make sense, but does it actually? Not all practice is productive. Do any of these sound familiar? I practice all the time, and I still feel like a total beginner. Man, I had years of that. I just need more practice time, and then I'll be able to play like name your favorite guitar hero, or no matter how many times I've tried to play whatever it happens to be, sweep arpeggios, that song you want to do, this solo, I still can't get it. The problem is that most players start with acquiring knowledge, so learning riffs, licks, songs, portions of solos that they don't yet have the technical proficiency to perform. This leads to trying to acquire more and more knowledge to fill that void, which never ever happens. The struggle is real. I always love sharing my story. Yes, this is proof I once had hair, and I obviously had some Halloween makeup. Feel free to laugh. My story followed this exact path. I started learning guitar in the early 80s, and I jumped right into trying, quotes, to learn Kiss, AC/DC, Van Halen, Ozzy. Yeah, there were a lot of things that I was trying to learn. However, I hadn't built foundational skills like picking and strumming, timing and groove, feeling the underlying pulse of a song, where things were located on the fretboard, how to listen to music to learn it on a deeper level. I could name a big old long list of things I just had not even fathomed I needed to work on. And I was putting in a lot of practice time, but I was frustrated and really discouraged. Once almost gave up completely when I spent several weeks, I think it was almost a month, reading an Iron Maiden tab book upside down. So, yeah, I did not have my skills in order for sure. That struggle to learn anything lasted a lot longer than I would even care to admit. I mean, I spent a month trying to figure out tabs, so that gives you a good guess. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to find some really competent musical mentors through the years who were able to show me that the path I had been on was almost completely wrong, and they turned me on to a set of strategies I like to call the practice modes. Just to clarify, don't confuse these with musical modes. These are like turbo mode, snow mode, nothing to do with music. So the modes of practice and why they are so important. So I'm just going to kind of go through these really quickly so you have a good general idea, and then we'll kind of put it into an application. Mode 1 is the learner mode, and this is where you appropriate base or needed skills. So if you're a newer player, that's going to mean kind of getting foundational skills like chording, picking, strumming, feeling the time, all that kind of stuff under your belt, and learn to a pretty strong level. If you're a more advanced player, this might look more like building needed skills to play in new musical contexts, new techniques for those contexts, scales, styles, different things like that. Mode number 2 is the copy mode, and this is the acquire knowledge mode where you're putting information in. This can look like learning licks, riffs, songs, strum patterns, etc. by rote memory. And the drawback on that is this can only be used in one context. So if you learn a riff and you're not able to move it around or do anything with it, it's only good for that one song or that one key or that one specific style instead of it actually becoming a part of your vocabulary. And this mode can also be really dangerous because you start learning about concepts instead of actually applying them. So the YouTube rabbit holes, man, I've been in them, and you can spend 20 videos watching about the cage system and never once pick up your guitar. So knowing about something is not the same as actually having experiential knowledge of applying it. And we'll look at that more in a little bit here. Mode number 3 is the creator mode, and this is where you begin to apply the knowledge that you're picking up. You're putting in your brain and putting in your fingers, using stacked and leveraged training to build skills in multiple applications, songs, keys, styles, context, etc. And this is where musical conversation skills are starting to take shape. So this is an important practice mode for sure. Mode number 4, this is all about maintenance. And so maintaining a base skill level, knowledge familiarity, so kind of where things are on the fretboard, what keys, where the keys are, stuff like that, and creativity application. This is also where musical consistency and the confidence to play with and for others is developed. So this is that point in training where you are building your skill level headroom significantly higher than what you're going to be doing when you get on a stage and play with people, or you jam with friends, or you play for your dog on the back porch, whatever it happens to be. This maintenance level of practice, this is where you build that consistency. So the one thing that I've kind of learned over the years and kind of what I've been in is that most players start in the acquire knowledge mode and they stay there for their entire musical journey, constantly trying to find new information that will magically transform their playing, takes up the bulk of their allotted practice time, and the rest of the time is spent noodling on the same 10 things that they played for years. Whoa, I had my 10 things for sure. Not realizing there is that there are deeper levels to learning, leaves them frustrated, stuck, and ready to bail at any moment. So I wanted to take a little bit and look at a new player learning sequence. And there, at the end of, once we get through this sequence, there's a reason why, if you're watching this, you are more than likely an intermediate, late beginner, intermediate, or advancing player. However, I'm going to go through this sequence because it may still be relevant if there are foundational things that you need to go back and build. This could be helpful for you. So if you are a newer player or someone who's been playing for a while and still feel like a beginner, this sequence of practice modes might help you find freedom and confidence in your playing. Mode 1, appropriate skills. So the first mode of practice for all new players should be centered around the absolute basics. So I'm not saying that as looking down upon, but these are the things that have to be in place so that you can move forward with your playing. So with things like tuning, fretting hand finger independence, picking single notes, easy chord shapes, so songwriter chords is what I call them, switching between chords, no picking hand involvement, switching between chords with easy strums, strumming in time, no chord changes, strumming in time with chord changes, very specific separation of the hands and working on those skills until they become like second nature. And obviously seeking out a qualified instructor during this phase of learning is crucial. Being self-taught is not the badge of honor most people think it is. A lot of people from my generation, that was the thing. You wanted to be naturally talented and figure this stuff out, but a lot of the people that were naturally talented, they grew up in musical families and they had somebody around that they could model. So finding a qualified instructor is massive for sure as a newer player. Can't emphasize that enough. Next, we want to jump to mode 3 where we apply knowledge. So the next practice mode for new players would be all about application of the skills built in mode 1. So the tuning, the finger independence, the switching chords, the strumming, the picking, and that's where we get into the mode 3 where we're applying that those specific skills. This is where having a clear picture of your future musician self pays off. You'll be playing a lot of exercises and etudes to solidify those key musical skills, and a strong vision of the future musician self is needed to stay motivated, because you just have to get the reps in. You have to put that time in, and expect to really focus on the following: the physical act of playing and getting clear notes on the instrument, groove development and timing, very, very important. This is the time to build it. Fretboard navigation, being able to get around and know where notes are, and then growing the musical ear. All these make sense when people read through them, but when you actually have to get in there and do it, it can seem a little daunting. So laying it out like this makes some sense. The next practice mode for new beginners would be acquiring knowledge in practice mode 2, and this is where things begin to heat up. So all the newfound skills and application of those skills build into playing songs. So that's kind of you're kind of acquiring these new songs that you can apply the skills to, which it's a different out of order way of looking at things. Practice mode 4 will probably not make an appearance in this learning sequence, but don't forget it exists. Also notice how the order of operations has changed. So before we had appropriate the skills, acquire knowledge, and apply the knowledge. Now we've got appropriate the skills, apply the knowledge, so kind of working towards applying what you learned here in mode 1, and then you're acquiring the knowledge of things that you want to apply that knowledge to. So acquiring more knowledge takes a backseat to building foundational skills and applying them a lot before moving on. I call this getting in your reps, and it's just just doing it over and over and over again until it becomes a habit, becomes almost like second nature as you're going through. Next, I want to look at the intermediate learning sequence. So for all of you intermediate players, the upcoming sequence of practice modes might help you find freedom. I know it sure helped me. Referring back to the results of your strategy planning session completed earlier in this training, be sure to go back and complete that if you haven't already. It's going to be important. We'll now acquire the needed knowledge to work on and master your 3 priorities of focus. And here's a reminder of that list for your reference. We have groove and timing development. We've got fretboard mastery and triads, ear training foundations, music reading, meaning like lead sheets, chord, like real book sheets, things like that. Learning songs like a pro, which is memorizing songs so that they're easier to bring up in live situations, and then scale foundations. And this is basically laid out in order of importance. So you notice I started with A minor pentatonic. I started at the very least most important thing, and it took me a long time to get to the most important thing, this groove development. So really pay attention to how these things are laid out. This particular acquire knowledge mode, this could look like researching your top priorities online or with a qualified instructor and gathering the needed reference materials. For instance, if your top priority is mapping out and using triads for jam sessions with your friends, you may gather the needed triad fretboard diagrams. You may source out some appropriate ways to apply the triads in your specific playing context or style to the fretboard. Are you playing those triads down on lower strings, up on higher strings, towards the middle of the neck, so on and so forth? And you could also download song materials you'll be playing at that particular jam session. So again, what we're talking about here is using triads for jam sessions. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Next, we have the appropriate the skills. It's time to hunker down and actually train and build the skills you've acquired the knowledge about. So this practice mode could be as simple as learning to play the jam session songs using triad shapes sourced out during the previous practice mode. Most likely in isolation, so no tempo, no metronome, and no song playing in the background. And that just makes learning things faster and easier as you're working on getting those skills built up. It could also be as involved as learning the jam session song or songs using the triad shapes sourced out in the previous mode in multiple locations on the neck. For instance, low part triads, middle part triads, high part triads. If that doesn't make any sense to you, basically you're figuring out how to play in different parts of the neck so that you can stay out of the way of maybe keyboard players or vocalists or the bass player, and being able to play those in different registers on the neck. That's a deeper involvement of triads. Time and practicality should be the driving factor in how detailed this practice mode becomes. So if you're literally just getting ready for a jam session next Friday to play a couple of songs, I don't know if I would go into figuring out different parts. However, if you were going to go to a jam session in front of an audience, like an open mic type thing, where you don't know if there's going to be other guitar players, you don't know if there's going to be a horn section, you don't know what the setup is going to be, it might make sense to go in and figure out different parts you could play. That way, when you're up on stage, you're not hunting for things. You have somewhere that you can go. So, that time and practicality should always be a motivating factor in figuring out how deep you should go into a specific subject. Next up, we're going to go to practice mode 3, which makes the most sense. The application of gained knowledge is where the rubber meets the road and can take on quite a few different looks based on future goals. So staying with the jam session goal, this practice mode would most likely happen in 2 phases. So phase 1, you would be playing the learned triads along with the actual song at slower tempos if needed. Those slower tempo training is a great preparation for playing the song at the jam. So you're applying those triad shapes wherever they might be on the fretboard with the song. And if for some reason you're still kind of maybe smoothing out the change from triad to triad, then this is the time to slow the tempo down and get those motions memorized. Back in my day, we would tape quarters or nickels on the arm of our phonograph to kind of slow the needle down. I got many beatings for doing that, but it was the same thing. I was slowing the tempo down so I could hear something or so I could play along with something. Now we have technology where we just hit a gear icon and we can do it immediately, and we don't have to listen to it really slow. It's still in the same pitch, so take advantage of that goodness for sure. All right, and last up for this learning sequence is practice mode 4, and this is the maintenance mode. How many times have you worked really hard to learn a song or a technique or a concept only to forget it a short while later? Me too. I've probably learned and forgotten more things than I will ever have the opportunity to bring up. But this is where practice mode 4 saves the day. By strategically reviewing learned items over a period of time, we can move things like fretboard diagrams, songs, hard-won playing techniques from short-term memory, where it gets lost really quickly, to long-term memory. And P.S., this really helps solve the brain fog that happens when someone asks you to play something. We've all been there. Hey, you play guitar. Can you play something? Phew, blank. If you are kind of working in this mode 4 maintenance mode, you have several things that are in your hip pocket, and sure enough, you can kind of pull those up. Also, the higher up the skill ladder in reference to mode 4, the more important this mode 4 becomes. So being able to maintain a higher base level of playing is what makes the other practice modes easier to work through. So this practice mode, the maintenance mode, is why pro musicians can learn new songs so quickly, figure out solos by ear on the fly, or pick up a guitar anywhere and play something that sounds amazing. They have worked to maintain their skills and knowledge to a very high level of development, making each trip through the practice modes more efficient and effective. So they basically have really made going through these different phases or modes of practice almost like second nature, and maybe they acquire the knowledge. If they have a really good ear, that happens quickly. Then maybe their technique, they have it down so they can learn how to play it really quick, and then they can take that and apply it over the songs in a set. And then it becomes a matter of kind of tracking how to come back to that every so often. It just becomes a faster and faster process. So which practice mode are you in? So building a predictable, well-ordered path to mastery is made easier by being aware of the different modes of practice and applying them strategically to learn, build, apply, and maintain skills is key for sure. So if you had to guess, which of the 4 practice modes have you spent the most time in? Better yet, which modes have you spent the least time in or maybe weren't even aware of? Most of these modes are never discussed but are used all the time by professional musicians. So action item number 3, up to bat, find your success sequence. So this is going to be, it's going to seem like it's very involved, so I want to talk through it, and this is something you can take offline and work through. So first off, we want to review your homework from action item 2 on this training and take note of your top priority item. Get a clean sheet of paper and a pen, or open a blank document on your computer and draw or list the 4 practice modes like this. So we've got the mode 2 acquire, mode 1 appropriate, mode 3 apply, mode 4 maintenance. Step number 4, we want to list out or gather at least 3 sources of information for your top priority topic. So this is going to be your main objective topic. This could be from books, from courses that you have, from magazine articles, from YouTube videos, from materials from your instructor. All of that is fair game. But now what we've done, instead of just getting a bunch of stuff together, we have a specific goal as we gather these things. I want to learn X, so I can look through a table of contents instead of getting sucked in by the first 32 measures, measure 33. Chapter 33 is what I'm looking for. So then that leads us to step 5, where we extract the needed info from each source, be that fretboard diagrams, training exercises, training materials, whatever. And then number 6, you want to ask yourself what needs to be committed to memory. Fretboard shapes or patterns, exercises, the order of notes and where they are, specific parts to songs, stuff like that. Invest the time at this stage, in the acquire stage, to get things off the page and into your brain. I can't emphasize this enough. It's hard to build solid skills if things aren't fully memorized. And I understand that, some solos, you're looking at the tab and it might be pages and pages worth of stuff. This specific order might just be for the first 4 measures. So memorize those first 4 measures and work on the techniques that need to be there. As you're acquiring this, chunking it down is okay. And actually, as you begin putting those chunks together, it's going to make everything come together and get memorized even better. So be sure you memorize whatever you're acquiring in mode 2 here. That's important. Number 7, in finding your success sequence, you want to create a practice list of the items you need to work on. So, what we acquired, we're going to have specific things that we're working on. This list could include the dates you practice them, the tempos that you played them at, if appropriate. If you're trying to work up to a song tempo, you kind of want to know and see how you're laddering up that tempo. Could be handwritten or computer based, whatever makes the most sense for you. You want to be, this shouldn't take up an extraordinary amount of time. You're just kind of, it's almost like if you're writing down your workouts at the gym, you scribble something down and then you move on to the next thing. Number 8, you're going to begin training using the resources gathered in practice mode 2 when you acquired the knowledge. Step 9, track what, how long, and any tempos in your practice log. Just like in that list, you want to start filling that out. This will serve as a great source of motivation as you move through the different modes of practice. And then number 10, you want to repeat steps 8 and 9 until the things you're practicing feel second nature at moderate tempos. So if you're working on something that is at 160 or 200 BPM, shoot for like 80 to 100. That's kind of what we're looking for. You don't want to get stuck in trying to get up there, because if you're learning a solo, for instance, within a song that you have to play or jam, you want to kind of get everything up to tempo at roughly the same time. So getting to that moderate speed is good. This is very subjective, but you want to be able to play at a medium tempo without tension or strain and being very relaxed. And I've heard several touring musicians talk about being able to play something and talk with other people, or be able to play through a song and recite their address or phone number or whatever it happens to be. Basically, you are compartmentalizing these things in your brain to where they become like a habit or an instinct. And this is the time we want to do that for sure. Finding your success sequence, step 11, you want to begin applying the knowledge and skills you've been practicing to the end result scenario. So playing with a song, or improvising over a track, or jamming with a friend, or playing a gig, whatever that happens to be, assuming the first 2 practice mode stages were followed and applied until relaxed execution was attained, the results should speak for themselves at this point. And then bonus step number 12, if practicing for a performance, be sure to video yourself several times throughout your training sessions, maybe 2 to 3 times per week. You figure out what number works best for you, but nothing beats performance anxiety or red light syndrome, whatever it happens to be, like recording yourself and reviewing the footage. Singers go through this all the time. They go to lessons and they have to review the recordings of them singing in those lessons. And what happens is they get desensitized to the way they perceive themselves sounding. It used to be recording on a little cassette recorder it just got you really nervous. Now we have video where we hit record and you can see us as we're playing things. The more you're able to do that, the more you literally conquer that performance anxiety, because as you review it, you start to see, the practice is paying off. I am improving. I am moving closer towards my goals. So definitely, if you can do this step 12 more often than not, you're going to be in there for sure. All right. Step number 3, plan on practicing the items used in this sequence 1 to 2 times per week for the next month or so. So that's something, be sure to just put that in your practice log and skip forward and write in, whatever you're working on there. You would then start the sequence over with your next priority or the next element in your current priority. So again, if we are working on technique to be able to play solo, you would have that next chunk of the solo. If you're working on learning the strings of the neck, it would be, you move to the next string type of thing. So it can definitely be chunks of that. If it's triads, maybe it's the next string set, whatever it happens to be. But you're going to kind of cycle through these specific modes quite often. I have in here the first few times through this sequence will take some getting used to, especially as you're writing and tracking stuff. It requires trust in yourself and your goals, but it is definitely worth it. All right. So this is obviously a very generalized walk through building a sequence using the practice mode strategy. My hope is this general walkthrough and guidelines will enable you to apply them to your unique vision, your unique strategy, and your unique learning sequence. You know way better than anybody else kind of how you learn and what works for you. Maybe you need visual examples, audio examples, kinesthetic examples. As you're acquiring knowledge, think about that and find things in appropriate places. A lot of this is common sense. It's just trying to put it all together can sometimes be a mess. So hopefully this gives you a lot of good ideas there. I want to share some examples of past clients. So this is Matt McMahon. He was a professional musician. He's now an author. And when he came to me, he had been an acoustics player and singer, basically like a singer-songwriter type person. And he needed to transition into playing more electric guitar, playing along with other guitar players, stuff like that. And he basically said, my abilities greatly increased, my confidence is higher, and my musical understanding is deeper. He basically went through these same concepts, kind of developing who he wanted to be, figuring out which of those 6 priorities he needed to focus on to become the next higher level of himself. And then he kind of went through very similar stages of, I don't think I had to do much coaching in this particular case, but very similar practice modes to kind of get the results that he wanted, switching from one instrument to another, acoustic to electric, and so on. And past client Martin Kroger, he had played in live bands for a long time. He came to me and said, I've been playing guitar for 10 plus years and hit one of those endless plateaus in my skill advancement that all guitarists know about. We've talked about it throughout this training. The improvement that I've seen has been incredible. And again, it was more about developing a clear vision, kind of putting those priorities out there and picking them and actually sticking with them until they became second nature. And he was just burning it up by the time he left. He's probably still gigging. I need to catch up with Martin. All right, and that brings us to next steps. So the first thing is just implement this training. Go through the action items, developing your future musician self. Remember, this can always change as you move down the road, but you have to have something that you're aiming towards. Figuring out your top 3 priorities out of the 6 that we had, those refined objectives, and then kind of putting together your practice mode success combination based on your learning style and where you're at. That is huge. If you can do those things, you will start to notice a big difference in everything that you do as a musician, for sure. You can connect with me on Facebook. Feel free to message me. I'll send you more resources, kind of keep you in the loop as more trainings come out. Would love to hear from you. Or let's chat one-to-one. So if you're looking to become a gig-ready guitarist this year and need a little extra support, book a call in the description, and I'll help you create a game plan for you to reach your next level. All right. It's been a pleasure. I hope you all got something good out of this, and I hope you go forth and become your best musical selves.